Deep space was silent. No sound. No movement. Just endless black. Far from any star, the fleet of the Empire waited. Hundreds of warships floated in perfect lines. Their metal bodies shined under distant starlight. Weapons were ready. Shields were active. Every ship was prepared for battle. At the center of the fleet stood the largest ship of all, the flagship. Inside it, Admiral Kale stood on the command deck. He was a man who had never lost a war. Tall. Cold. Calm. His eyes looked out through the wide glass screen at the empty space ahead. Something felt wrong. "Report," Kale said quietly. An officer stepped forward. "All systems normal, Admiral. No enemy ships detected." Kale did not move. "No enemy," he repeated slowly. "Yes, Admiral. The sector is clear." Clear. That word did not sit well with him. Humans were supposed to be here. This was their last known position. A weak species. That is what the Empire believed. Slow ships. Old technology. Easy to defeat. And yet. They had destroyed 3 Empire fleets before. No one understood how. Kale narrowed his eyes. "Run the scan again," he said. The officer hesitated. "Admiral, we already scanned this area 3 times. Do it again." His voice was calm, but firm. The officer nodded quickly. "Yes, Admiral." Machines began to hum. Soft lights blinked across the control panels. Data started to flow on the screens. The crew waited. Seconds passed. Then 1 minute. Still nothing. "Admiral," another officer said, "there is no sign of any human ships." Kale stepped forward slowly. His boots echoed on the metal floor. "That is the problem," he said. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at him. Kale kept his eyes on the stars. "Humans do not run," he said. "Not after what they have done." The officers exchanged nervous looks. Before anyone could speak, a soft beep came from the scanning station. "Admiral," a young officer whispered. Kale turned his head. "What is it?" I'm getting something." The room grew still. "What kind of signal?" Kale asked. The officer shook his head. "It's not clear. It's very weak, and strange." "Show me." A blurry image appeared on the main screen. At first, it looked like nothing. Just empty space. But then, something moved. Not a ship. Not an object. It looked like space itself was shaking. Kale stepped closer. "Explain," he said. The officer swallowed. "I don't know, Admiral. It's like, the area is bending." "Bending?" "Yes, like light is being pulled." Kale felt a cold feeling in his chest. Zoom in. The image grew larger. Now everyone could see it. The stars in that area were not in the right place. They were stretched. Twisted. Like something invisible was hiding there. "Cloaking technology," one officer said. Kale shook his head slowly. "No, this is different." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A loud alarm filled the ship. "Warning. Unknown energy signature detected." The crew jumped in shock. "What is happening?" someone shouted. "Energy levels rising," another officer yelled. Kale's voice cut through the noise. "Stay calm. Give me a report." The scanning officer's hands were shaking. "I'm reading massive energy spikes. It's coming from that area." "How massive?" Kale demanded. Admiral, it's off the scale. Silence hit the room. Off the scale. That was not possible. No ship could produce that much energy. No known ship. Kale stared at the screen. The distortion in space was growing. Bigger. Stronger. Like something was about to break through. Shields to maximum, Kale ordered. Full fleet alert. Yes, Admiral. Across space, the Empire fleet came alive. Ships powered up weapons. Shields glowed brighter. Engines prepared for movement. But still, there was nothing to see. Only that strange distortion. Then, the stars disappeared. Just for a second. And in that second, something appeared. A shadow. Massive. Dark. Silent. Gasps filled the command deck. "What is that?" someone whispered. The shadow grew clearer. Edges formed. Lines appeared. Metal. Structure. A ship. A human ship. But it was not like the others. This one was huge. Larger than any Empire battleship. Larger than anything they had ever faced. It did not arrive. It did not fly in. It simply appeared. Like it had always been there. Hidden. Watching. Waiting. Kale felt his breath slow. "That's impossible," he said quietly. The scanning officer stared at his screen. "Admiral, it just decloaked." The word hit everyone hard. Decloaked. But no cloak worked like this. This was something else. Something far beyond what they understood. The ship floated in silence. Screens went black for a moment. When they came back, a message appeared. On every screen. On every ship in the fleet. Simple words. Clear. Cold. You should not be here. No signal source. No transmission path. Just, there. Kale's heart pounded. "Trace that message," he ordered. "We can't," an officer shouted. "There's no origin point." "That's not possible." "I know, Admiral, but it's true." Kale clenched his fists. This was wrong. All of it. The silence. The hidden ship. The message. Nothing followed the rules. Then, the human ship moved. Slowly. It turned. Facing the entire Empire fleet. A single ship. Against hundreds. And yet, it did not look afraid. It looked ready. Kale took a deep breath. His voice became sharp. "Battle stations," he said. "All ships, prepare for combat." "Yes, Admiral." Across space, weapons locked onto the target. Energy built in the cannons. Missiles armed. Every ship aimed at the human battleship. But no one fired. Not yet. Because deep inside, every officer felt it. Fear. Real fear. Kale stared at the massive ship. His mind raced. This was not a normal enemy. This was something new. Something dangerous. Something they did not understand. And that made it the most dangerous of all. The silence returned. Heavy. Unbearable. Then Kale spoke one final order. "Target the ship." A pause. His eyes did not move. "Prepare to fire." The crew obeyed. Fingers hovered over controls. Waiting. Just waiting. And in that moment, the entire Empire fleet held its breath. Because somewhere deep inside, they all knew the truth. This was not the beginning of a battle. This was the moment everything changed. The human ship did not move. It stayed there, silent and still. In front of it, the entire Empire fleet waited. Hundreds of ships. All armed. All ready. All aiming at one target. But no one fired. Not yet. Inside the flagship, Admiral Kale stood frozen for a moment. His eyes were locked on the massive human battleship. It was too calm. Too quiet. That silence felt wrong. "Status," Kale said. His voice was steady, but low. "Target locked, Admiral," an officer replied. "All ships are ready to fire. Energy levels stable?" "Yes, Admiral." Kale took a slow breath. The human ship had not attacked. It had not even raised a weapon. But that message. "You should not be here." It still echoed in his mind. Kale did not like unknown things. And this ship was full of unknowns. He stepped forward. "Send a signal," he ordered. The communication officer looked up. "What message, Admiral?" Kale kept his eyes on the enemy ship. "Ask them to identify themselves." The officer nodded quickly. "Yes, Admiral." Signals were sent. Clear. Strong. Official Empire command. The whole fleet waited. Seconds passed. No reply. Only silence. "They are not responding," the officer said. Kale's jaw tightened. "Send it again." The signal was sent again. Louder. Stronger. Still nothing. No voice. No data. No movement. Just that massive ship, watching. Then. The screens flickered. The lights dimmed for a second. The crew looked around in fear. "What was that?" someone whispered. Before anyone could answer, a message appeared again. Same as before. Simple. Cold. "You should not be here." Nothing more. No name. No warning. No threat. Just those words. Kale felt something shift inside him. This was not normal communication. This was control. The human ship was not talking. It was deciding what they would see. "Try to trace it again," Kale ordered. "We are trying, Admiral," the officer said quickly. "But there is nothing to trace. No signal path." Kale frowned. "That is impossible." "Yes, Admiral, but it is happening." The entire bridge turned toward him. "Admiral," one officer said, surprised. Kale did not look at him. "Do it." "Yes, Admiral." A single Empire cruiser moved slightly forward. Its main cannon powered up. Bright energy gathered at the front. The glow grew stronger. Stronger. Then. Fire. A powerful beam shot across space. Fast. Direct. It hit the human battleship. A bright explosion filled the darkness. Light covered the ship. For a moment. No one could see it. The crew leaned forward. Waiting. Hoping. The light slowly faded. The smoke cleared. And then. The ship was still there. Not damaged. Not shaken. Not even scratched. Nothing had changed. A deep silence filled the command deck. "No," an officer whispered. "That's not possible." Kale did not speak. His eyes were wide. That blast could destroy a cruiser in one hit. And yet. It did nothing. The human ship did not react. It did not fire back. It did not move. It just stayed there. Like it did not care. Then something changed. Very slowly. The human battleship began to move. A low sound filled the ship. Not from space. From inside the Empire systems. Like a deep hum. "Admiral," the engineer said, voice shaking. "I'm detecting a field, surrounding the human ship." "What kind of field?" "I don't know, it's not like any shield we have seen." The human ship turned. Slow. Smooth. Now it was facing the entire fleet directly. Like a giant staring at smaller prey. The hum grew louder. Systems began to glitch. Screens flickered. Weapons lost lock for a second. "What is happening?" someone shouted. "Our systems are being affected," another officer yelled. "How?" Kale demanded. "We don't know." The human ship stopped moving. Now it was fully facing them. Still silent. Still calm. Then a new message appeared. Different from before. Longer. More direct. "You fired first." The words hit like a punch. No anger. No emotion. Just fact. Kale felt a cold wave run through his body. This was bad. Very bad. "Prepare all ships," Kale said quickly. "Full combat mode." "Yes, Admiral." Weapons powered up again. Stronger this time. Missiles locked. Energy levels rising fast. The fleet was ready for full attack. But something felt off. Very off. "Admiral," the scanning officer said slowly. Kale turned. "What now?" "I'm detecting something behind us." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Behind us?" "Yes, but it was not there before." Kale turned back to the main screen. "Show me." The screen shifted. It showed the rear of the fleet. Empty space. Nothing unusual. Then a small flicker. A distortion. Just like before. Kale's heart stopped for a second. "No," he whispered. The distortion grew. Faster this time. Stronger. The crew stared in fear. "It's happening again," someone shouted. "But, that's behind us," another yelled. The distortion broke. And something appeared. Another ship. Same design. Same dark shape. Another human battleship. Gasps filled the room. "That's impossible," an officer shouted. There was only one. But now there were two. One in front. One behind. The fleet was trapped. Kale's hands tightened. His mind raced. "This is not a single ship," he said slowly. "This is something much bigger." The hum grew louder. Stronger. Almost painful. Systems began to fail. Ships reported errors. Weapons lost targeting again. The human ships did not attack. Not yet. They were positioning. Waiting. Watching. Kale understood now. This was not a normal battle. This was a trap. And they had walked right into it. Then both human ships moved at the same time. Just a small movement. But enough to send fear through every soldier. Kale took a deep breath. His voice was strong, but inside, fear had started to grow. "All ships." He paused. Then gave the order. "Prepare for full assault." Because now There was no turning back. The fleet did not wait anymore. Fire! Admiral Kale's command echoed across every ship. In one moment, hundreds of Empire warships attacked. Bright beams of energy cut through the darkness. Missiles launched in waves. Plasma blasts filled space with light. Everything was aimed at the two human battleships. The void exploded with fire. From the flagship, Kale watched in silence. This is it, he thought. No ship could survive this. No shield could hold against such power. The attacks hit direct. Massive explosions covered both human ships. Light burned so bright that the stars disappeared again. Shockwaves moved across space. Even the Empire ships shook from the force. For a few seconds, there was nothing but fire. The crew leaned forward. Waiting. Hoping. Report. Kale demanded. We are still firing, Admiral, an officer replied. Stop, Kale said. The weapons went silent. The light slowly faded. Smoke and energy waves cleared. Everyone stared at the screen. Trying to see. Trying to find anything. Then, the shapes returned. Dark. Still. Unbroken. Both human battleships were still there. No damage. Not even a mark. A deep silence filled the flagship. No, someone whispered. That's not possible. Kale did not speak. His face had changed. For the first time, there was doubt in his eyes. How? An officer asked. No one had an answer. The strongest attack of the Empire had done nothing. Nothing. The human ships did not fire back. They did not even move. They just stayed there. Like the attack meant nothing. Like the Empire fleet was nothing. Then, the hum returned. Louder than before. Stronger. It filled every system. Every screen flickered. Warning signs appeared everywhere. System error. Targeting failure. Energy disruption. What is happening? An officer shouted. Our weapons are losing power, another yelled. Shields dropping by 5%, someone else cried. Kale stepped forward. Stabilize the systems, he ordered. We are trying, Admiral, but something is interfering. What kind of interference? We don't know. Kale looked at the human ships. They had not fired. They had not attacked. But still, the Empire fleet was weakening. Without a single shot. That's not possible, Kale said under his breath. Then, one of the human ships moved. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just a simple shift in position. But the moment it moved, it vanished. Gone. Just like that. Gasps filled the command deck. Where did it go? Someone shouted. Scan. Kale ordered. We are scanning, the officer replied. Nothing appeared on the sensors. No signal. No trace. The ship was gone. But then, Admiral, another officer screamed. Behind us. Kale turned to the rear screen. And there it was. The human ship had reappeared. Right behind the fleet. No travel. No delay. Just instant movement. That's impossible, an officer shouted. No ship can move like that. Before Kale could react, a bright flash lit up the screen. One Empire destroyer exploded. Gone in a second. What happened? Kale shouted. No weapon detected, the scanning officer said in panic. We didn't see anything. Another flash. Another ship destroyed. Then another. And another. Each explosion came without warning. No beams. No missiles. No visible attack. Just sudden destruction. The crew began to panic. "They are killing us," someone shouted. "But how?" another yelled. "We can't see the attack." Cale clenched his fists. "Focus," he shouted. "Track their position." "We can't," the officer cried. "They keep disappearing." The second human ship moved now. The one in front. It vanished too. Then appeared on the left side of the fleet. Another explosion. More ships destroyed. "They are everywhere," an officer shouted. "No, they are not everywhere," Cale said slowly. "They are just faster than we can understand." The attacks continued. Each one perfect. Each one deadly. Empire ships tried to fire back. But their weapons could not lock. Their systems were failing. Their formation was breaking. "Retreat formation," one captain shouted over the comms. "Permission denied," Cale said firmly. "We hold the line." But deep inside, he knew the truth. They were not holding anything. They were losing. Fast. Another explosion lit up space. More ships gone. The fleet that once looked powerful now looked weak. Broken. Afraid. Cale stared at the chaos. "This is not a battle," he said quietly. "This is something else." The human ships appeared again. Both of them. Now side by side. Floating in front of the damaged fleet. Calm. Silent. Untouched. Like nothing had happened. Like the destruction meant nothing to them. Then a new message appeared. Clear. Sharp. Cold. "You cannot fight what you do not understand." No anger. No pride. Just truth. Cale felt the weight of those words. For the first time in his life, he felt small. His fleet was one of the strongest in the Empire. And yet, it was being destroyed like it was nothing. Without effort. Without warning. Without mercy. "Admiral," an officer said softly. "What do we do?" Cale did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the human ships. They were not attacking now. They were waiting. Watching. Like they were giving him time. Time to understand. Time to decide. Cale took a deep breath. His voice was lower now. Heavier. "This enemy." He paused. Then finished the sentence. "Is beyond us." The room went silent. No one argued. No one spoke. Because they all knew. It was true. The human ships moved slightly again. Just enough to remind them. They were still there. Still watching. Still in control. And the Empire fleet was no longer the hunter. It had become the target. The battlefield was no longer under control. What once looked like a strong Empire fleet, now looked broken. Ships were out of position. Some were drifting. Some were damaged. Some were gone. Burning pieces of metal floated in silence where proud warships once stood. Inside the flagship, the command deck felt cold. No one spoke. No one moved quickly anymore. Fear had entered the room. Admiral Cale stood still, staring at the screen. The two human battleships were still there. Untouched. Calm. Watching. They did not chase. They did not rush. They moved only when they wanted. Like hunters who already knew the end. Kale's hands were tight behind his back. His mind was racing. This is wrong, he thought. This is not how war works. In every battle Kale had fought before, there were rules. You attack. The enemy defends. You find weakness. You win. But here. There were no rules. Report, Kale said quietly. His voice was not loud anymore. An officer answered slowly. We have lost 32 ships, Admiral. Many more are damaged. Kale did not react. And our weapons? Still unstable, targeting systems are failing again. And shields? Dropping slowly. Kale closed his eyes for a moment. Every second, they were getting weaker. And the enemy? Still perfect. Still untouched. Admiral, another officer said. Kale opened his eyes. What is it? I think they are letting us live. The words hung in the air. Letting us live. Kale looked back at the human ships. They had stopped attacking. No new explosions. No new movement. Just silence again. Heavy silence. Like a storm that had already passed, but could return at any moment. Why? Kale asked under his breath. No one answered. Because no one knew. Then. The main screen flickered again. The crew tensed. Another message appeared. But this time. It was longer. More direct. You came to erase us. The words were clear. Sharp. Kale felt his chest tighten. The message continued. You saw us as weak. You thought we would fall. Kale remembered the reports. Human colonies destroyed. Human ships hunted. The Empire had believed it was easy. Too easy. The message continued. You were wrong. Silence filled the room. Kale felt something he had not felt in years. Regret. Admiral, an officer whispered. But Kale did not respond. He kept staring at the screen. The human voice was calm. No anger. No shouting. Just quiet truth. That made it worse. Because it meant one thing. They were not afraid. Not even a little. Kale stepped forward slowly. Open a channel, he said. The communication officer hesitated. Admiral, they don't use normal signals. I don't care. Try. Yes, Admiral. Signals were sent. Wide range. Every frequency. This is Admiral Kale of the Empire Fleet, he said. His voice was strong, but something inside it had changed. We request communication. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then. The lights dimmed. The screens shifted. And for the first time. A voice was heard. Not from the speakers. Not from one place. It felt like it came from everywhere. Calm. Cold. Controlled. We are already communicating. The crew froze. Some looked around in fear. Some held their breath. Kale stood still. You speak, Kale said slowly. Yes. Then answer me. A short pause. Ask. Kale took a breath. What are you? The question sounded strange. But it was real. The answer came quickly. Human. Kale's eyes narrowed. No, humans are not capable of this. Another pause. Then. You are correct. The words hit hard. Cale felt a chill run through his body. "What do you mean?" he asked. "We are what humanity became." Silence. Heavy silence. Cale understood. Not fully. But enough. These were not the same humans the Empire had studied. These were something else. Something stronger. Something dangerous. "You destroyed our fleets," Cale said. "Yes. You let us see your power." "Yes." "Why?" A longer pause this time. Then the answer came. "So you understand." Cale's heart beat slower. "You want us to be afraid." "No." Another pause. "We want you to remember." The words echoed in the room. Remember. Not fear. Not warning. Memory. Cale felt the weight of it. This was not just a battle. This was a message. A lesson. And the Empire fleet was the example. Suddenly, an explosion lit up space. One more Empire ship was destroyed. The crew flinched. Cale looked up sharply. "Why did you attack again?" he demanded. The voice answered calmly. "That ship fired." Cale turned to his officers. "Did we fire?" A nervous officer nodded slowly. "A damaged ship, lost control. It triggered a weapon discharge." Cale closed his eyes. Even now. Even in this moment. One mistake led to death. The human voice spoke again. "We respond to action." Simple. Clear. Cold. Cale understood now. There was no anger. No hate. Only response. Cause and effect. Like a machine. But smarter. Much smarter. The human ships moved slightly again. Closer this time. Not fast. But enough to make every heart beat faster. Cale felt it now. Real fear. Not fear of losing. Not fear of death. Fear of something greater. Something unknown. Something unstoppable. "This is not war," he whispered. "This is judgment." No one corrected him. Because no one could. The fleet was no longer fighting. It was surviving. And the human ships were deciding how long that would last. Cale looked at the broken battlefield. At the destroyed ships. At the silent enemy. And for the first time in his long career, Admiral Cale was afraid. The battlefield had gone quiet again. Only a few Empire ships were left. Most were damaged. Some could barely move. Others had no weapons left. The proud fleet that came to destroy humanity was now broken. Inside the flagship, Admiral Cale stood in silence. His eyes were fixed on the two human battleships. They were closer now. Not attacking. Not rushing. Just waiting. Like everything was already decided. Cale felt tired. Not his body. His mind. Too many things had happened too fast. Too many things did not make sense. "Admiral," an officer said softly. Cale did not look at him. "Report." "Only 17 ships remain fully active," the officer said. Cale nodded slowly. "And the others?" "Disabled, or drifting." Cale said nothing. 17 ships. That was all that remained of a massive fleet. And the enemy? Still untouched. Still perfect. The silence on the command deck was heavy. No one spoke unless needed. No one moved fast. Everyone was watching. Waiting. Then. The main screen changed. The stars faded. The battlefield disappeared. Instead, images appeared. Clear. Sharp. Real. "What is this?" an officer whispered. Kale stepped closer. The first image showed a planet. Blue oceans. Green land. Peaceful. "Is that a human world?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, the image changed. The same planet. But now burning. Cities on fire. Smoke covering the sky. Ships in orbit. Empire ships. Kale felt a sharp pain in his chest. He knew this place. It was one of the first human colonies the Empire attacked. The image changed again. More destruction. More fire. More death. Human ships falling. Human people running. Crying. Dying. The room went silent. No one spoke. No one breathed loudly. They all watched. And they understood. The human voice returned. Calm. Cold. Clear. This is where it began. Another image. A smaller colony. Destroyed. Then another. And another. Each one showing the same thing. Empire attacks. Human loss. Human suffering. Kale clenched his fists. "We did what was necessary," he said quietly. The voice answered immediately. "That is what you believed." The images continued. Now showing something different. Human ships. Damaged. Retreating. Then. Building. New ships. Different designs. Stronger. Faster. More advanced. "We learned," the voice said. "We watched. We adapted." Kale's eyes followed every image. He saw the change. Slow at first. Then faster. Human ships becoming stronger. More dangerous. More efficient. "They should not be able to grow this fast," an officer whispered. Kale did not answer. Because now. He knew why. The images showed human scientists. Working. Testing. Failing. Trying again. 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 Never stopping. "We improved through loss," the voice said. "We became stronger through pain." The images changed again. Now. Human ships fighting back. Winning. Destroying enemy vessels. Not running anymore. Not weak anymore. The Empire officers shifted uncomfortably. This was not the story they had been told. This was something else. Something real. "You thought we were soft," the voice continued. "You thought we would break." Kale felt the weight of those words. Because it was true. The Empire believed humans were weak. Easy to defeat. Not worth fearing. The images changed one last time. Dark space. Silent. Then. A massive shape appeared. The same battleship they were facing now. Large. Powerful. Unstoppable. "This is what you created," the voice said. Silence. Deep silence. Kale stared at the image. His throat felt dry. "We created this," he whispered. "Yes." The answer was simple. Clear. Final. "If you had left us alone." The voice paused. Then finished. "We would have remained weak." The words hit harder than any weapon. Kale closed his eyes for a moment. He understood now. This was not just human power. This was human response. Everything they had become was because of the Empire. Because of war. Because of destruction. "Admiral," an officer said slowly. "What do we do now?" Cale opened his eyes. The images faded. The battlefield returned. The broken fleet. The silent human ships. Everything felt different now. Not just fear. Understanding. And regret. Cale stepped forward. His voice was calm, but heavy. To the human command. He paused. Then spoke clearly. "We did not understand." Silence followed. Then. The human voice answered. "No." A short pause. "You did not." Cale nodded slightly. "And now, we do." The human ships did not move. They did not attack. They simply listened. Cale took a deep breath. "We will leave this sector," he said. "We will not return." The officers around him looked surprised. But no one argued. Because they knew. There was no other choice. The human voice spoke again. "Understanding is the first step." Cale waited. Then asked one final question. "What is the second step?" There was a longer pause this time. Then. "Change." The word stayed in the air. Simple. But powerful. Cale looked at the remains of his fleet. At the damage. At the loss. At the lesson. He understood. If the Empire did not change, this would happen again. And next time, there might be no survivors. The human ships moved slightly. Just enough to remind them. They were still in control. Still watching. Still deciding. Cale stood straight. His fear had not disappeared. But now, it had turned into something else. Respect. Because for the first time, he was not looking at an enemy. He was looking at a truth. And that truth was clear. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was something else. Something stronger. Something that had learned the hard way. And something that would not be defeated again. The battlefield was quiet. No more explosions. No more fire. Only broken ships and silent space. The Empire fleet was almost gone. Only a few ships remained. They were damaged. Weak. Barely holding together. At the center, the flagship still floated. Admiral Cale stood on the command deck. He looked tired. Not just in body. But deep inside. He had seen too much. Learned too much. And lost too much. In front of him, the two human battleships waited. Still calm. Still silent. Still untouched. They had not attacked again. They did not need to. The message was already clear. Cale looked at the remains of his fleet. Slowly, he spoke. "All ships, hold position." No one questioned the order. No one wanted to fight anymore. They all understood. Fighting meant death. Waiting meant survival. For now. "Admiral," an officer said quietly. "Our systems are stable again, but weak." Cale nodded. "And the human ships? They are still in front of us. No new movement." Cale took a slow breath. Everything had changed. Just hours ago. He came here to destroy humanity. Now. He only wanted to leave. Alive. Then. The human ships moved. Not fast. Not aggressive. They simply moved closer. The distance between them and the Empire fleet became smaller. Every officer felt it. That pressure. That presence. Like standing in front of something far greater. Kale stood still. Waiting. Watching. The screens flickered. Then. The human voice returned. Clear. Calm. Final. This ends now. The words were simple. But heavy. Kale stepped forward. Yes, he said quietly. It does. A short silence followed. Then Kale spoke again. We will leave this space, he said. We will not return. The human ships did not respond immediately. They stayed still. As if thinking. As if deciding. Seconds passed. Long seconds. Then. The voice answered. You will leave. Not a question. A statement. Kale nodded slowly. Yes. Another pause. Then. You will carry a message. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. What message? The human ships moved just a little closer. Close enough now that their full size could be seen clearly. Massive. Powerful. Unstoppable. The voice spoke again. You will return to your empire. Yes. You will tell them what you saw. Kale felt a small weight in his chest. I will. Another pause. Then. The final words came. Slow. Clear. Cold. Never come back. Silence filled the command deck. No one spoke. No one moved. The message was simple. But its meaning was absolute. Not a warning. Not a threat. A line. A boundary. Kale understood. This was not fear speaking. This was control. The human ships were not asking. They were deciding. Kale straightened his posture. His voice was calm. It will be done. The human ship stayed still for a moment. Then. They began to move. But not like before. Not fast. Not sudden. Slowly. Gracefully. They turned away from the Empire fleet. Like the battle was finished. Like the outcome was already written. The hum returned. Soft. Deep. The same strange energy filled the area. Space itself began to bend again. The stars shifted. Light twisted. The two human battleships started to fade. Not disappearing instantly. But slowly becoming less visible. Like shadows in fog. Kale watched closely. He did not look away. Because he knew. This might be the last time he ever saw them. Admiral, an officer whispered. They are leaving. Kale nodded slowly. Yes. Within seconds. The human ships were gone. No signal. No trace. Nothing left behind. Only silence. Deep space returned to normal. The stars were steady again. The distortion was gone. It was like they had never been there. But the damage. The loss. The memory. That remained. Kale stood still for a long time. No one spoke to him. No one gave orders. They were all waiting. Finally. Kale turned away from the screen. His voice was quiet. But clear. All ships, prepare for retreat. Yes, Admiral, came the weak replies. The remaining ships slowly began to move. Engines struggled. Systems worked slowly. But they were alive. They were leaving. As the fleet turned away, Kale looked back one last time. At the empty space. At the silent void. His eyes were different now. Not proud. Not confident. But aware. He had come here to end humanity. Instead, he had seen what humanity had become. And that truth would stay with him forever. Set course for home, Kale said. Coordinates were entered. The fleet began its slow journey back. Back to the Empire. Back to tell the truth. Hours passed. No one spoke much. The crew was quiet. Lost in thought. Each one thinking about what they had seen. What they had survived. Kale stood alone for a moment. Looking at the stars again. But now. They felt different. Colder. Darker. Full of things unknown. Never come back, he whispered. He would follow that order. But he also knew something else. Far away. Beyond the reach of the Empire. Human ships were still there. Hidden. Watching. Waiting. And if the Empire ever forgot this day. If they ever returned. Then next time. There would be no message. No warning. No survivors. The silent void held that truth. And it would not be forgotten.